Hi everyone, and welcome to another professional sales e-learning video class. This is Tony Brancatella. Today we're going to continue the sales process, and we're going to dive right back into something that we all have already looked at before, and we're going to revisit communication styles. So let's get right into it, and let's start with a definition of communication styles. A very simple definition: patterns of behavior that others can observe. And by others means everyone, including ourselves. So we will be observing and be observed when it comes to communication styles. How well do you know yourself? Communication styles helps everyone to have a better understanding and self-awareness. And it also helps and creates interpersonal relationships at different levels. And also, when it comes to communication styles, it creates also these relationships where we do become sensitive to other styles. And for us sales associate, when it comes to being sensitive to other styles, it helps us manage customers. Now, when it comes to communication styles, it's very individualistic. And we all have different gestures and expressions, as we've seen certain exercises that you have done in the past when it comes to sales, when it comes to nonverbals and verbal communication. You'll notice that we all have different gestures and expressions, and also levels of confidence or lack of confidence, which makes us all unique. So when it comes again to being very individualistic, there's a lot of levels of observation that we do, or like I mentioned earlier, we get observed. Another aspect of communication style we can take a look at is the way of behaving. It is a way of behaving, and it's not an ability. And it's also preferred way of doing things individually. We all have a different way of doing things, which makes it very subjective. And also when it comes to communication styles, there is the aspect of relationships. Relationships with our loved ones, our friends, and in our level, we're talking about sales, well, relationships with co-workers, relationships with management, and importantly, relationships with customers. And having said that, we want to get a high level of being also an understanding and high level of understanding with others, and it makes us be in sync with others. And this is very important when trying to understand others and to try to find out what their needs are. This is all about determining needs. So determining needs is not as easily as it seems, because this is why we do a lot of qualification and qualifying, I should say. When we do qualify, we try to eliminate a lot of the bias that surrounds customers or customer understanding or presumptions. We talked a lot about this. Another word we could use instead of presumption is prejudice. Communication styles can form a certain level of prejudice when we meet someone. So we have to counter this and go around it. So this happens often when certain different styles differ and we can't get around it. So communication bias, what can we do? Well, we can again develop awareness of your own style first and foremost to have a better understanding of where you're coming from. So if you are a blue, how blue are you? How analytical are you really? How reflective are you? This helps us assess the style of others. The more we know ourselves, the more we can determine how someone is different than us and assess the styles of others. And from there, the trick of all tricks when it comes to sales is to adapt your own style to the customers. It also creates insight, person insight. And this, when it comes to person insight, there's always a difficulty of finding out or knowing everyone or trying to please everybody, and this is very difficult. Certainly if you are a green, if you're an emotive, and it's very difficult to be in line with someone that is reflective, let's say. So, acceptable to someone and irritating to someone else. In sales, you have to counter this. You've got no choice. So let's break it down. Let's take a look at dimensions, communication dimensions. So if you look at these two pictures, you could have an understanding of what we're trying to get at. When it comes to communication dimensions, there are two of them: dominance and sociability. So let's take a look at dominance. So dominance is a take charge attitude, and also in the aspect of interpersonal relationships are built, and it really builds up the dominance level of someone if you have high dominance or if you have low dominance. So if you look at that, when it comes to interpersonal relationships, someone that has low dominance, someone would be less assertive, more be willing to be controlled, also more cooperative, and in sales, very important, eager to assist. So this will show up with low dominance. On the other scale, on the other side of the scale, you've got high dominance, where certainly someone that has high dominance, they love to give their advice freely, even when you don't want it. And also very initiate demand. So dominant people always initiate demand. They want things from you. They're very assertive, and vice versa of being willing controlled, high dominance, they seek control. On the other side, we've got, from dominance, we've got sociability. Sociability, seek and enjoy social relationships. It measures the expressive feelings that we all have, and in the same case as dominance, there is high sociability and there is low sociability. So if we look at the scale, here you got high sociability from expresses feelings, open and talkative, enjoys personal associations where most of us are, controls feelings, and more reserved and formal when it comes to relationships. They'd be considered to have low sociability. So let's put them together, and you've got this framework here where you can see it on one level. You got high sociability, low dominance, and high dominance. So where do you think most people lie? Do you think most people lie here with high dominance and high sociability, or high sociability and low dominance, or low sociability and low dominance, or high dominance and low sociability? So let's keep that for later. Find out where most people lie, especially when it comes to sales. Let's keep going. So now here we got a little bit more information when it comes to communication styles. We have the two factors, dominance and sociability, and we have the four communication styles. And as you notice, we're using different terms here. So there's emotive, there's director, there's reflective, and there is supportive. You'll recognize them right away. So let's look at emotive. Now, emotive is high sociability and high dominance. Characteristics of someone that's emotive: very spontaneous, very uninhibited behavior, very open behavior, personally described as being extroverted, extroversion, and very natural persuasiveness. will not back down if you ask him or ask someone that is emotive to do something. The answer will probably be yes. Very, very spontaneous. Next one is director. Now, director is low sociability and high dominance. So directors project serious attitude, they express strong opinions, and they also may project indifference. So they like to lead and control. Next one would be reflective. Reflective is low sociability and low dominance. So someone that is reflective expresses in manners in a different or a deliberate manner, very, very highly formal when it comes to form and to conversation. Always seems to be preoccupied or in their thoughts, and very orderly. They prefer orderliness, very tidy people. And the last one is reflective. Reflectives are high sociability and low dominance. They like to listen attentively. They avoid the use of power. They make thoughtful decisions. And they express themselves in a deliberate manner also. So there you have the four of them. Let's put them all together on a scale. And here you have them all. You've got supportive, emotive, director, and reflective. You'll see something new here on this diagram is that I've added zones. So you've got zone 1, zone 2, and you've got excess zone, or you can actually call it a zone 3. So let's take a look at each zone. So if you communicate, someone is communicating in zone 1, no matter where they are, supportive, emotive, director, or reflective. I like my circle. Stick to my day job, right? Not very artistic. And so communication in zone 1, all four different styles display less intensity and may be difficult to identify the style. So when someone is inside here, a little bit more difficult to find out if they are emotive, or if they are supportive, or if they are director, or if they are reflective. A bit more difficult at this stage, in this zone I should say. So here we go again. Display less intensity and may be difficult to identify the style. Also, not as obvious in gestures, tone of voice, speech patterns, and emotional expressions. Next one we're going to look at is zone 2. Again, not a very good drawer, and I hope you understand what I'm trying to do here. It's just inside the two yellow lines would be zone 2. Now zone 2 displays greater intensity and the behavior change also when they're upset or angry that will come up into play. So that would be at a higher level and away from the middle of the actual where all four meet. You got zone 2. Again, display great intensity and behavior change when they're upset or angry. It's obvious, you'll see what style they are. And the last one, a little bit more obvious certainly, and nicer circle also. Excess zone. So excess zone, really, someone is intense, someone is rigid, inflexible at all stages, and lacks versatility. We talked about mindset. I hope you had a chance to take a look at the video also, mindset. And you can see that when someone has a fixed mindset, this is where they are. They are in the excess zone. Now the excess zone, right, may interfere with relationships, and also the levels of stress and insecurity are a lot higher. So let's take a look at the behaviors. I'm not going to read it all. You can pause the screen and take a look at it, or we can take a look at it later in class. You have supportive style, attempts to win approval by agreeing with everyone. Director style is determined to come out on top. Emotive style tends to express high emotional opinions. And reflective style tends to avoid making a decision. So let's identify the styles. The one way to do it is, even if they are in zone 2, gestures and postures, facial expressions, and speech patterns, which are all nonverbal, can also play a big part in trying to identify what style someone is. This is certainly before we even qualify or ask any questions. When it comes to speech patterns, a lot of things are obvious here. When someone repeats a lot of conversation, inconsistency in how they talk, if they are suddenly interested or suddenly uninterested. Now, do you know which ones they are? And also if they don't talk very much, if they use small, short sentences to answer your questions. That can tell you a lot about someone right there. So if someone repeats, can tell you a lot about what they are, which style they are, if they are inconsistent also. And also here plays a big part. Suddenly someone is very interested in what you're saying, or the opposite, someone is not interested in what you're saying. So determine where customer falls, dominance and sociability level. So the process in this is to take your time. You cannot rush into this to find out what they are. If they are harder to find out, you need to ask more questions and you need to qualify even more. So different situations bring out different behaviors. You will not meet the same customer twice that will come in the door that will act exactly the same. So you need to always be ready to switch to something else or switch to different types of dominance or sociability levels. We'll take a closer look at it now. Well, then this comes into personal insight. There should be an E here. Break a habit to establish another habit. If you're a constant talker, talk less, or vice versa. This is if you want to be a little bit closer to a person. If you see someone is talking a lot, right, you need to do the same thing, or vice versa. When you want to switch from your communication style to get closer to somebody else's communication style, it takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of work. Looked at versatility, right? You gain social endorsements, make others feel more comfortable if you are more versatile, and you are independent of style. You would be harder to figure out what style you are. The more you act like a chameleon. Chameleons change color no matter what the situation is. If there's danger, if there's a romantic a romantic chameleon that's close to them, they will change colors for that too. So it's all about this, flexing. You need to be able to flex from one style to another. Flexing means to change or to attempt to change styles. You have to understand that a lot of people don't realize that maybe that you cannot change a certain style, but if you attempt to change the style, it will make you get closer to the customer and meet customer needs. So, style flexing is a temporary effort to act in harmony with other communication styles. It's not to become, let's say if you are emotive, to become a director, but it's to act in harmony of a director, let's say. So let's see how we flex, what you have to do to flex, depending on what style you want to flex to. So let's take a look at expressive. So flexing to an emotive, expressive style. Here you need to build a social and business relationship. You need to get closer. You need to identify or ask a lot of questions that gets you closer to the customer. Very personal questions also at certain levels that you could ask. You need to display high interest in their ideas and less emphasis on details. More information, more about them than about you. and maintain a fast and spontaneous pace. Question after question. They don't mind that you ask questions here. That is flexing to an emotive style. Now, if you're flexing to a director style, you need to shorten your sentences, be to the point, present facts, provide specific answers. You need to make very fast decisions and a very fast pace. And one thing you have to do, as you can see the picture here, you've got the power pose. You got to show a level of strength and confidence. If you're flexing to a reflective style, very well organized. You better be prepared. You better know your product. You better be able to answer all the customer's questions, or the customer will turn around and walk away. You need to be more direct than indirect. That doesn't mean you have to be rude. When you are more direct than indirect, or less formal or more formal, you still need to be a bit more direct. So if you have to be accurate also in presenting your information, you've got to know your information. And messages have to be detailed and precise. Now, be detailed does not mean you talk for an hour. You will lose them. You need to be to the point. You need to speak slowly and systematically. So the tone here can stay the same. It can be very monotone. They do not mind. They're searching for information. And if you flex to a supportive style, sincerity is very important. Look for common interests. And if you look at a person, the way they're dressed, glasses, or whatever they're wearing, look for commonality and mention it. That's very important. Draw out personal views, just like the emotives. And listen and be very responsive with them. And unlike the emotives, do not push. So style flexing possibilities. It certainly helps build constructive relationships when it goes well, when you're on the right track. And it also gives you a valuable and productive strategy to finalize a sale. And it's also critical when something important is at stake, when you know how to flex. The better you flex in certain situations, more possibilities of closing the sale. But there is certainly drawbacks when it comes to flexing, right? We tend to presume a lot, and just because they answer a certain question a certain way, we label them right away, and they're probably not that at all. So do not be rigid when it comes to to flexing. If you're not sure, keep on going, ask more questions, and you need to build to confirm presumptions. So you always have presumptions like we had mentioned at the beginning, but you need to confirm that this is what they are. If they're not, then certainly do not stick to that. Do not be rigid. So here they are again. You've got zone 1, zone 2, excess zone. You've got high sociability, low dominance, and high dominance. So you've got a lot more information that I gave you. I have attached with this video an exercise that I would like you to take a look at it, and we will finalize in class also. So with this information, you can have questions already for me. I'll be ready for them, and we could really get to know more about communication styles. And when it comes to role playing, we will be easier to figure out and not presume certain styles. Great. So I hope that went well, and sorry for my marbles in my mouth there at one time or another, and I apologize for that. And look, we're gonna see ourselves later on and talk a little bit more about communication styles. So have fun, take care, and see you in class.